Robert Scribbler here with the Sunday, February the 19th edition of the OBX Wave Report. Happy birthday, Mom. And today it is cloudy across portions of the Outer Banks, partly to mostly cloudy with some rain coming in off the Atlantic Ocean for areas south and places like Buxton and Frisco and Billy Mitchell. North, it's just partly cloudy. Temperatures are warming up a bit from yesterday following the passage of a gale force front on Friday and Saturday. And waves are in the range of 1 to possibly as high as 3 feet as the waves have calmed down in the passage of the front. So not much in the way of big waves today, although some of these waves might be pretty rideable. Particularly since the winds are gentle out of the east and there's a nice swell lining up. So for those of you who are not too proud to surf some small waves, you might have some nice rides out there, some tiny little barrels. The one thing about the Outer Banks waves that is fascinating to me is how much force they come at you with. It's like even the small waves think they're 10-foot waves. I was out there doing some testing of the GoPro bite mount and floaty on Friday, and I got out in the waves with my bodyboard because my surfboard mount was just spending time adhering to the surfboard. And we'll see how well the surfboard mount does. It's kind of close to the nose. It's about, I don't want it like in my face as I'm paddling and duck diving, so I put it about half foot away from the nose of the board, and we'll see how like wet that gets and if it can get good film. But in any case, film, good video. Film is kind of an archaic term now. But in any case, the waves, I mean, they're 1 to 2 foot waves, little waves coming in off the Atlantic, but they were just coming in with just like whoosh, kind of force. And I mean, it wasn't like they were really smashing me, but I could tell they were trying to. Just little 1 to 2 foot waves. And that's just the way it is in the Outer Banks. You get this energy in the surf. So might get some fun rides out there with those 1 to 2 foot waves here in the Outer Banks. And looking out across the country, let's see. Well, here we've still got like little rain, little area of disturbed weather for parts of the Outer Banks. Nothing too crazy, just light rain in spots. There's a big old high pressure system here off the North Atlantic, just off the U.S. East Coast, and it's just pulling in some moisture off the Atlantic and dumping it on, not really dumping it, sprinkling it on portions of the southeast. Doesn't look like there's too much in the way of crazy weather. And there's a little bit of disturbed weather still remaining up in the north behind the front and just tracking across the Great Lakes. We've got almost kind of a river of moisture. I don't know if we could actually call it an atmospheric river, but there's a stream of moisture coming in through the Baja region of the southwest parts of Mexico and into Texas and New Mexico, western Texas and New Mexico, and some storms firing up in association with that. And then off to the northwest, we've got some storms coming in off of the Pacific in toward Seattle and British Columbia. And there is an upper level low here off of California as well. There's a big dip in the jet stream streaming down across the west, so conditions have been stormier out there and will tend to be stormier over the next few days. And out here in the east with the Outer Banks, we've got this high pressure system that's expected to develop off Florida, dredge up a southerly flow and bring in warm and moist air off the Gulf of Mexico and off the Atlantic. The ocean water temperatures are much warmer than normal out here in the Gulf of Mexico and in the North Atlantic as you get even just a little bit offshore. And that's having an influence of tending to generate warmer than normal temperatures for the US East, particularly for the US Southeast over the next 1 to 2 weeks. Looking at the infrared satellite shot, you can see that moisture streaming in off the Pacific and the upper level low swirling off of southwestern California, and as well as the storms coming in from the north and west, and the area of disturbed weather moving across the east with just a, just very mild disturbance moving across the east here. Look, I did want to show you guys this stream of moisture coming up from the tropics in through the Baja region and parts of New Mexico and Texas. It's not the kind of crazy atmospheric river that we had seen impacting California back in December and January, but it is a notable feature, and it's linking up with some Gulf moisture and some Atlantic moisture. So something to keep an eye on. And it is worth noting that the big high pressure system is pulling up some tropical moisture and hurling it at parts of southeastern Alaska and Canada. So it's probably getting pretty stormy up there. And then we have just generally moist air coming in off the North Atlantic on the back of a high pressure system out here. This high pressure system is expected to sink in toward the south and west, or there's a high expected to form here off of Florida, and that's going to enhance some warmth for the US Southeast and help to pull in more of that moisture, possibly firing off some storms for the central US. Here in the Outer Banks, we've got partly cloudy to mostly cloudy conditions. No weather alerts up. It might be a sprinkle here or two down near Buxton, but doesn't look like much coming up on the radar. And you can see the light snows over the Great Lakes with some rains coming in through parts of Pennsylvania, as well as that river of moisture, stream of moisture moving in across parts of Mexico into New Mexico and Texas, as well as some showers up here in the Seattle region. Looking at the marine weather forecast, we do have a gale warning up for parts of the offshore environment for Sunday. Just making sure that this is updated, with some disturbed weather expected to sweep on through into tonight and Monday in the offshore environment. Looking at the quantitative prediction forecast, it doesn't give us an indication of where the storms are likely to form over the next 7 days. And we do have an indication for possible nor'easter type storms, ocean type storms here off the US northeast. So possible nor'easter formation up here. For the south and for the Outer Banks, it seems like weather conditions are expected to be more calm over the next week, with possible firing up of storms and maybe even some thunderstorms here from northeast Texas running through parts of Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, into West Virginia, and into the Ohio Valley region. And then for the west, the strongest precipitation events, most severe precipitation events are expected for Washington and Oregon, with more moisture streaming into southwestern California and the Rockies, particularly in the ranges and the peaks, likely to get some snowfall as more moisture streams in off the Pacific. Getting down to the Outer Banks, I'm going to provide some wave reports for you guys. Just generally speaking, waves are much more calm than they have been. And as we get on down to Jeanette's Pier, we find that the waves are in the range of 1 to 2 foot. This is the case for most of the east-facing beaches, 1 to 2 foot waves, possibly even smaller. And we've got 1 to 2 foot waves with a primary swell coming in at 6 seconds there at Jeanette's Pier. Peak wave heights in those sets in that swell coming in about 1.9 feet, so not even fully 2 feet in that 1 to 2 foot range with that 6 second period, and then a secondary swell coming in at 8 seconds. Winds are out of the southeast at 9 miles per hour. That's a onshore flow, very gentle, likely very glassy down there at Jeanette's Pier. And air temperatures right now at 47 degrees. I did check the local monitor. This is actually about spot on, maybe even undershooting the prediction right now by a little bit. Ocean water temperature is very cold at 47 degrees according to the monitors. So yeah, very cold there at Jeanette's Pier as far as ocean water temperatures. Weather conditions are partly cloudy with an expected high today of 53 degrees Fahrenheit. So warming up, although the warm up is expected to continue into tomorrow. Now, for most of the east facing beaches, waves are in the range of 1 to 2 foot. Excuse me here. I'm going to have a little nose I had to deal with. Morning nose. But for the east facing beaches, the the waves are in the range of 1 to 2 feet, and this is the case as we head on down to Rodanthe and Salvo and Waves and Avon. The story is again and again 1 to 2 foot waves. And then as we get down into Buxton, the waves are also in the range of 1 to 2 feet, but I got to put a little asterisk in there as the swell is a little bit larger down there at Buxton. Buxton's trying to be big today, but it's just not. With that primary swell coming in at 6 seconds at 2.5 feet, so edging up to almost 3 feet, it's trying to get to 3 foot there at Buxton with that 6 second primary swell coming out of the east and a 7 second secondary swell as well. Winds are out of the east southeast at 7 miles per hour, very gentle, likely to be very glassy down there at Buxton with that gentle onshore flow. Air temperatures warmer at 56 degrees. Ocean water temperatures have cooled down a bit and maintained at 59 degrees, which is sad for me because I don't know, been seeing those 60-degree water temperatures down there at Buxton over the past few weeks and thinking, Buxton's at least a little warmer, but nope, we're down to the 50s, even though it's 59 degrees. I guess it's more psychological than anything else, but it's gotten colder. Hopefully the waters will start to warm up as we get in closer to March down there at Buxton, and then those warm waters will start to spread northward. I'm anticipating the warmer waters, although I've gotten pretty hardy with my little 2-3 millimeter wetsuit getting into the ocean, and I have my warm hood, booties, gloves, and I don't know, it's not that big of a deal surfing in cold water conditions for me now, unless it's just like intense cold wind and getting smashed by big cold waves. But in any case, the weather conditions for Buxton today, we've got a chance of showers. It's cloudy right now, expected high of 60 degrees, which is actually pretty warm. So moving on south to Billy Mitchell, I did want to provide a south-facing beach observation, and the onshore monitors are telling me that Billy Mitchell has 2 to 3 foot waves, but if I look at the swells don't really add up. So for example, we've got a 10-second swell that's coming in at about maybe 2 feet from the you know south and east there at Billy Mitchell. So I don't understand how the onshore monitors are giving me this 2 to 3 foot wave condition, but I don't know, maybe the swell is perfectly lining up and then getting a little bit bigger due to the shape of the coastline. But in any case, I'll just say 1 to 3 foot waves there with an asterisk based on the combination of observations from the shoreline and the swell. Primary swell coming in at 10 seconds, secondary swell coming in at 7 seconds there at Billy Mitchell. Winds out of the east southeast at a high angle to the shore, onshore flow, but a little bit of a cross shore component with those 4 mile per hour winds, so not affecting the waves all that much. So very calm, likely very glassy waves down there. Like actually, what I will say about these wind conditions is and the wave conditions is that likely these waves are very beautiful. They're probably producing these little barrels. The Outer Banks just produces barrels kind of everywhere when it starts to get very glassy like this. And even though the winds aren't blowing offshore, hollowing out the waves, Outer Banks waves tend to be pretty hollow. I'm kind of bummed that I don't have the opportunity to go down and get an observation for you guys, but I'd be willing to bet that's glassy and pretty hollow today down at the coastline. All right, so air temperatures right now 56 degrees at Billy Mitchell. High today expected at 60. I'm sorry, ocean water temperatures right now at 60. So, there we go. So I got my 60-degree ocean water temperature. So I can be happy now. I can look south and say, it's a little warmer down there, even though 60-degree water temperature is not really that warm, but it is for winter time. In any case, weather forecast for today, cloudy, chance of rain there at Billy Mitchell, high of 60 degrees as well. All right, so let's get out to like a broader discussion of weather. Um, I found some things in the models that are fascinating and maybe a little bit concerning. We'll get to that later. Right now at the Climate Prediction Center, I just wanted to show you that the ongoing trend for warmer than normal conditions for the US East and Southeast continues, with now the exception being the extreme Northeast. Um, and this has kind of been the case for at least the past 3 weeks or so, and this trend is expected to continue. I've heard weather observers and news pundits talk about how, wow, there hasn't really been much of a winter here for the east and the southeast. And I mean, we've had some cold flashes, but it hasn't been too bad and not very wintry at all. It's in the Outer Banks we've experienced, I would say, kind of this strange combination of spring and fall type conditions with little flashes of winter every now and again, but very rare. This kind of trend is likely to continue at least over the next 14 days. And then out west, it's expected to be much cooler than normal as a huge trough is expected to develop. This trough is actually already visible in the jet stream, and apparently it's expected to continue through the 8 to 14 day time period. With this dipole, there's this risk of extreme weather between the two, and in the models, some extreme weather is starting to pop up in the long term, and this is in grain of salt territory, and we'll get into that in a little bit. When it comes to precipitation, we're expected to see above normal precipitation here for the Great Lakes region south of Lake Erie and into the Ohio River Valley, and rather above normal precipitation in the 8 to 14 day time period for parts of California. This is in the like 1 to 2 week out forecast. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it as things progress. I did talk about the jet stream, and I've advanced the upper air model to February the 24th, so getting in about the 5 day time frame. And what's expected to happen is we're expected to see this big ridge pushing warmer air up toward Alaska, and then a trough in front of it dipping down across the US West Coast with stormy and cooler conditions for the US West Coast. And then this big high expected to develop over Florida to develop or to continue the warm trend here for the US Southeast. But we do have this dividing line, and storms are likely to track along the jet stream in that dividing line. Looking at the mesoanalysis, it's not likely to, yep. We're not likely to see too much in the way of severe weather, although we have some potential tomorrow into parts of Alabama and Mississippi, and then into Tuesday and Wednesday, it looks like a broader area from Texas to the Ohio River Valley under the gun. And then the 5 day, we have some potential for severe weather on day 4, which is Thursday for parts of East Texas. Now, I did want to show you this one thing before I end, as I'm coming up close to like my time deadline. So looking at the global forecast system model, we do see the storms running in through the Northwest, some storms coming in across the US Northeast. Nothing too crazy in the models. We do have a big storm expected to develop for the central US by Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday. So it looks like a major weather event with a double barrel low pressure system running in from Texas all the way up to the US Northeast on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so something to keep an eye on. And then consistent storms coming in to the US West Coast, with storms continuing to form along that dividing line between that warm and colder air for parts of the US East and South. But I'm going to go ahead and advance this model. Looks like we might even get a nor'easter here by the end of February. I'm going to keep advancing this model because by the time we get into March, things start to look a little mad. It looks like we get a little bit of March madness here. And the reason why I say this is, looks like we might get another bomb cyclone here in the central US. And of course, this is grain of salt territory. We're all the way out here on March 4th. But look at this low pressure system, 972 millibars. That's crazy low, right over the central U.S. Mississippi River Valley region, um, into parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Nebraska. And then let's advance this model just one frame. And as the storm gets closer to the Great Lakes, it bombs out to a 963 millibar system and then down to a 961. And that is just extraordinarily powerful. If you look at the isobars around it, this would be a major event for areas from the US Gulf Coast all the way up to the Great Lakes and everywhere in between, and a large swath running from Minnesota all the way to the US Northeast. So if this does happen, we're in for very powerful storm in early March. Now, of course, I said this is grain of salt territory because the models can't really resolve weather this far out, but it does show a tendency that we'll keep an eye on, which is why I asked the question in the title: Is March weather madness ahead for parts of the US East? We'll have to keep an eye on this thing. It might get a little crazy. Now, getting back to the Outer Banks, I just do want to show you the swell conditions right now. Off of Buxton, swell is in the range of almost 3 feet. And then for tomorrow, swell is about expected to pick up to 3 to 4 feet, with the swell orienting more to the south. So maybe some better waves for the south-facing beaches tomorrow. And then as we get into Tuesday, also a southerly swell coming in. So actually might be a decent wave day for Buxton, and areas south and westward along the Outer Banks. And then as we get into Wednesday and Thursday, well, Wednesday the swell falls down again, and then into Thursday with a stronger southwesterly flow, possible even larger waves for the south-facing beaches. So thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report. I am remote, so I'm not going to be able to get any observations down at the coastline today, but we will be back with you tomorrow for another remote wave report, and then on Tuesday we'll be back down to the beaches. So thank you for joining me again. And as I ask at the end of every report, please do everything you can to help speed the transition to clean energy and thereby protect our coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning, clean energy being wind, water, solar,